Speaking in Italy, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has invoked the memory of Margaret Thatcher, saying that her radicalism and vision is needed to tackle illegal immigration across Europe. Of course, the Iron Lady herself was outspoken on the issue way back in the late 1970s. Take a listen.
We're really rather afraid that this country might be rather swamped by people with a different culture. But if there's any fear that it might be swamped, people are going to react and be rather hostile to those coming in. We, the big political parties, if we don't want people to go to extremes, and I don't, we ourselves must talk about this problem, and we must show that we're prepared to deal with it.
Well, there you go. What she said there very much echoes what Rishi Sunak has said decades later. So would Margaret Thatcher have stopped the boats? I'm delighted to welcome her former advisor, journalist, broadcaster and political commentator, Niall Gardner. Niall, Merry Christmas to you. Why do you think Rishi Sunak has invoked the memory of Mrs Thatcher at this moment?
Well, it's great to be here on the show. Thanks very much. And it's good to see, of course, Rishi Sunak praising Margaret Thatcher. But at the same time, Rishi Sunak hasn't done a lot really to emulate Lady Thatcher. And I think that there's a big discrepancy between what Sunak is saying here and what the Prime Minister actually does. And in contrast, of course, Margaret Thatcher was a doer who actually implemented what she said. And so Rishi Sunak really has to follow that example. On the issue of immigration, of course, a huge issue for Lady Thatcher. I think she would have emphatically dealt with the small boats crisis, no doubt by deploying the Royal Navy to stop any small boats from arriving on British shores. Also, I think she would have stood up to the French Prime Minister. Of course, today that's Emmanuel Macron. And Sunak, of course, has done very little, I think, to stand up to the French. After all, the French are exporting illegal migrants across the Channel to the UK. Making it a British problem instead of a French problem. And I think that Margaret Thatcher would never have tolerated that. We need to see some backbone, I think, from Rishi Sunak and from the present government on multiple fronts. It's simply unacceptable that you have tens of thousands of illegal migrants crossing the Channel into the UK. I think that the Iron Lady would have put a stop to all of that, and she would have deployed every single resource available in order to stop the boats coming, including the deployment of the Royal Navy. Also, I'm in no doubt as well that she would have withdrawn the UK from the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights. I think that anything that is stopping British sovereignty and self-determination right now has to be thrown out of the window, basically. And so the ECHR should be thrown into the dustbin of history.
Do you
think that the Prime Minister should follow Lady Thatcher's example?
Yeah, do you think, sorry to interrupt you, Niall, do you think that Rishi Sunak has an inner Thatcher, though? And could stopping the boats be his Falklands moment? He's still Prime Minister and will be for some months to come.
That's a good question. I don't think that Rishi Sunak is in any way on par with Margaret Thatcher. And he has not demonstrated the kind of strength and resolve and conviction that Lady Thatcher demonstrated over the Falklands. And we do need to see the kind of leadership today that Margaret Thatcher and Winston Churchill exemplified and projected. Unfortunately, I think with Rishi Sunak, we haven't seen much evidence of that. And the British government has to secure Britain's borders. It has to ensure that we do not see illegal migrants crossing the Channel. The Prime Minister has to stand up to the French, of course, who are playing a big role in all of this. And we need to see a Conservative Prime Minister acting like a real Conservative. And I think we simply haven't seen that so far with Rishi Sunak.
Now, Niall, the elephant in the room is legal net migration, notwithstanding the national security, economic and humanitarian disaster of those illegal crossings. In the direction of 700,000 people are entering the country legally every year. What do you think an appropriate number would be?
I think those kinds of figures, almost 750,000 in terms of legal net migration, completely unacceptable. And we should be dramatically cutting the rate of legal migration, only accepting highly qualified individuals who can actually contribute to the British economy. And, you know, that figure of 750,000 or so should be cut down to less than 100,000, in my view. I think it's absolutely intolerable. It's unacceptable. Right. The Conservative government needs to be protecting Britain's borders in terms of both legal and illegal migration coming in.
Well, you and I are on the same hymn sheet, because in my big opinion 2 days ago, I posited the figure of 100k tops per year, and I completely agree with you on that. Briefly, if you can, Niall, everyone wants a piece of the Margaret Thatcher action. Even Keir Starmer spoke of her admiringly a couple of weeks ago. That must have had you spitting out your tea.
It is, of course, amusing to see the Labour Prime Minister praising Margaret Thatcher, but, of course, Keir Starmer was a million miles away from the kind of leadership that Margaret Thatcher exemplified. And I do think if you have a Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, the Socialists, running Great Britain, it would be an absolute disaster. And I think that Keir Starmer may praise Margaret Thatcher, but if you look at his policies, Starmer's policies for Britain would be absolutely catastrophic, I think. And I think that a Labour government would pose a real threat to Britain's future as a free country. A huge threat, of course, to Brexit as well. And I think that the last thing Britain needs is the socialists running the country into the ground. The Conservatives really need to get their act together, frankly, to stop the socialists coming back in. But I do think that Keir Starmer would be an absolutely useless Prime Minister, and I think disastrous for Great Britain.
Never one to sit on the fence. My thanks to Niall Gardner. Niall, I really enjoy having you on the show. Happy Christmas to you and yours, and we'll see you in 2024.
I look forward to that. Many thanks. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Brilliant.